How's that?
Perfect. Nice. So let us start. So the last but not least talk of today is going to be delivered by Hassan Hayat. He serves as the Director of Transmission Planning at IEP, American Electric Power. IEP delivers electricity to over 5 million customers, operating more than 40,000 miles of transmission lines, more than 200,000 miles of distribution infrastructure. The company currently serves over 35 gigawatts of demand, a figure expected to grow by 50% in the near future. Incredible. In his role, Hassan leads strategic efforts to plan and develop high-voltage transmission solutions across the AEP footprints, and his team focuses on addressing long-term grid needs driven by a shifting generation mix, accelerating electrification, and an unprecedented surge in demand from hyperscale data centers, something that we have been analyzing yesterday in the presentation of Professor Antonio Conejo. As the electric grid evolves, so too does our understanding of reliability, flexibility, and energy delivery. So today, Hassan will explore the challenges and the opportunities that emerge at the intersection of digital and electrical networks, and together we will examine case studies, interconnection complexities, and the strategic planning consideration to ensure resilient and efficient solutions. So Hassan, it is really a pleasure to host you today. Thanks for your effort. I think that it's 6 a.m. in the States, so thanks a lot for being here today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. I just wanted to, not a problem. It's not terribly early. I do have a 5-month-old at home, so he wakes us up pretty regularly throughout the night. So it's all good, no problem at all. But we'll get started. The way I just wanted to make sure that the way I'm sharing my screen, it's okay, right? If I switch slides, is it changing at your end? Can somebody confirm?
Yeah. We can see the change in the slide. You are sharing your screen, but the PowerPoint is not in full screen mode, but no problem with that. So if you want to use the full screen mode,
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, let's see, it works. Perfect.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we'll get started. Again, so we'll talk about data centers. We'll talk about what type of impact from a connectivity standpoint they're generating, and then what are some of the infrastructure needs on the electric grid that we're seeing here in the U.S. We'll tee it up a little bit. We'll talk about what the challenge is. We'll talk about how the electric grid regions are set up in the United States, and then we'll go through a couple of case studies. I think we have 2 case studies to talk about. Let's take a quick step back, right? I mean, data centers are far from a simple plug-and-play setup, right? It's not as simple as taking a PC and connecting it to a power outlet in your homes. The scale, the magnitude, complexities is just it's to a very different level, right? And as the human appetite for entertainment, for research, for running simulations, for really just using a lot of data to make decision, as human appetite is changing and growing with time, so is the size, magnitude, and really the need to host data in these effectively large computers. That's changing big time. It's a complex process which involves careful planning and really precise execution. At the end of the day, it is a delicate balancing act, right? We as electric utilities, whose job is to provide reliable, efficient, but also as quick as possible service to our customers. As we try to do that, but also at the same time, we want to make sure that the grid stays reliable, it stays stable for the other customers that exist on the grid today. In this session, we'll talk about key consideration, processes, and strategies that are behind managing that really intricate balance that's in front of us. At a very high level, we'll talk about what are data centers, how are we uh, planning on connecting them, what processes are used in the U.S., and then really just talk about this, understand the scale of infrastructure that is needed to connect them. Okay. All right. But as an everyday consumer, as an everyday user, of electricity, you might wonder, why should the average person care about data centers, right? I mean, the truth is, we all rely on them every single day, right? Whether you're asking ChatGPT a question, I'm guilty as charged. I use ChatGPT and other, advanced search algorithms every single day. Um, uh, 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 and when we're streaming our favorite show on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, you name it, or going back to our to the COVID days where all of us got into doing house projects and other types of projects ourselves. uh, you know, every time you go to YouTube to search up a video, there is, or backing up your phone, there's a big data center somewhere in your home country or in the US or throughout the world that is making all of that possible behind the scenes. I mean, data centers, as we know, right? These are not just big tech boxes that are humming away somewhere. I mean, they're huge. They're massive. They use a lot of power, and as we were talking about it, it requires careful planning, which really creates a ripple effect for economic growth. So oftentimes, data center is not a type of just a singular or a single dimension growth aspect that we've taken into consideration. Oftentimes, it also brings a lot of support industries to the area as well. So that also causes additional need to serve load demand on the grid. Uh, some of these data centers are massive. We've seen 300 megawatts, 400 megawatts, 500 megawatts, which is not bad. But now we're seeing 3 gigawatts or 3,000 megawatts, 4,000 megawatts. So these are, that number is size of a small town. So imagine being able to provide power, energy to a infrastructure that will use energy 85% times of the year, equivalent to a small town. So it's massive, it's unprecedented, and that's why the challenge is huge. By the way I have this laid out, if there's a question, something is not clear, you want to get more information on, feel free to stop me, no problem at all. But if you would rather wait till the end, that's fine too. Whatever works best for you. Just let me know if I need to monitor the chat or if somebody will ask me, and I'll stop. Very 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 casual.
Probably the questions at the end, Hassan. It will be better. Okay.
Okay,
Don't
sounds
don't be
good.
worried
Sounds
about the
good.
chat.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Okay. So when we talk about, when we talk about the data center energy use, right? It's not just the servers, the big computers that are doing the heavy lifting, right? The cooling systems uh, that keep those servers from overheating can contribute significantly to the overall electrical demand, overall electrical load. And in some cases, the cooling system alone could be half of the demand that we need to serve the take into consideration as we serve this as we serve this load. So when we are planning for these facilities, it's essential to think holistically and totally about the entire system. Not just the rack of servers, if I may. Moving on to slide number 5. Now in this part of the presentation, we will start to get into a little bit into how the electric grid is set up in the U.S. What are the different regions? We're going to talk about what planning processes at a very, very high level are utilized. We're going to talk about you heard about 40 to 50% growth that just my company is experiencing, but that's just a part of the overall system. So we'll talk about well, what is happening throughout the system, and then we'll talk about connect as we connect data centers to the grid. The infrastructure that is needed, which I'm calling it as the transmission solutions, when they're needed, well, what are some of the key considerations that are taken into account, right? What are the challenges? What are the aspects? And then we'll talk about what are some of the upcoming technological challenges on the grid from a short circuit standpoint, breaker interrupting capability standpoint, and really voltage collapse standpoint. What are some of the other challenges that we are running into? Uh, just to provide do a level set, right? In terms of US dollars, the infrastructure that we're talking about is in billions with a B of dollars. So huge investment and another frame of reference. When we think about the growth that we are anticipating in the next decade, because of data centers, electrification, and other things, all the infrastructure that is going to be necessary to be able to serve the customers in the next decades, the amount of infrastructure that we'll build in the next 10 years is equivalent to the infrastructure that we have built over the past 50 years or past 5 decades. So think about the work that we have done in the past 50 years, and now we have to do all of that in the next 10 years. So a great time to be part of the electric utility space. Um, I'll be very honest, when I first joined in 2011, right out of college, I thought about electric utility as a place which is, very cookie cutter, business as usual type of a field. But the growth that we're seeing, the challenges that we're seeing right now is just unprecedented, and really a good time to be in an electric utility. And even better, if you're interested in planning, if you're interested in analytics, running models, transmission planning or grid planning is the place to be right now. All right, moving on to slide number 6. We're just going to take us, a very macro look at how the United States, the grid in the U.S. is set up. Let me turn on my pointer. Right, so I'm right here in the state of Ohio. I live in a city called Columbus, and I work in a city called New Albany, which is one of the major hub for data center growth in the U.S. A couple of examples that we'll talk about are from the Virginia area, very close to Washington, D.C., the capital of U.S. And that, just like we have Silicon Valley, that part of the system, that part of the country, very close to Washington, D.C., is now called Data Center Alley, because the data center market, the data center customers that exist in that part of the country is the largest data center market in the world. And that too by a lot. So we'll talk about what challenges we're seeing over there, and go from there. Uh, the United States has three different grids that were developed in differently. There's an eastern grid that you see in different colors and different shades of blue. Then you'll see the western interconnect that you will see in different colors of green. Uh, and then you have Texas. Texas likes to pretend sometimes that it's its own country. So we have the Eastern Interconnect, we have the Western Interconnect, and then we have Texas. Uh, the reason we have three different grids are because they are not synchronized. So if you think about the AC signal, they don't transmit the AC signal at the same time, right? So the sinusoidal wave is desynchronized. So there are three separate grids per se. They are interconnected though. If they are obviously if they are out of sync, you can't connect them at the AC. What happens is the Eastern interconnect and the Western interconnect is connected through what we call it as back-to-back DC links, right? So you take AC power from Western interconnect, you convert that to DC, and then you convert that back to AC, and that's how in a way through that back-to-back conversion, DC to AC, AC to DC to AC conversion is how the grids are connected. So we have a few uh, connections like that between the Western interconnect and the Eastern interconnect, and similarly we have similar interconnects between the Eastern interconnect and the Texas. Then in yellow boxes, you'll see some names like CALISO. What does that mean? That is California Independent System Operator. Think about the yellow boxes as a entity, a regional entity that is responsible for uh, planning or coordinating planning aspects for the grid. So think about a new load that wants to interconnect. Think about a new generation that wants to interconnect. Think about new transmission lines, or just new infrastructure that will result in uh, change on the grid. So these regional entities in yellow boxes are responsible for coordinating, for overseeing those planning activities. Largely, these planning regions or entities are not for profit, but they are responsible for also running a market. If you want to buy and sell generation, you have to do it through these regional entities. Another way to think about these regional entities is a brokerage, right? Or like a Robinhood or Fidelity, or that is not in the business of making money, but really wants to make sure that everything is done correctly, following regulations and whatnot. Since I'm here in the state of Ohio, Ohio is part of PJM, regional planning organization. So the examples that I'm gonna bring to the discussion are gonna be from PGM. But over time, I do have worked in some of the different planning regions like PJM, MISO, SPP, and ERCOT. Texas is largely part of uh, uh, is largely part of ERCOT, but the examples we're going to talk about are from PJM. Uh, I'm not going to go one by one and explaining every single region, but just wanted to set the stage. Three different grids in the US: the Eastern Interconnect, the Western Interconnect, and Texas. The reason there are three different grids is because the grid was really developed uh, not in one direction, right? It kind of started forming from all the different directions, and then where the different interconnects meet is where they stop that interconnection, except for Texas, which just likes to be different. And then the three interconnections are connected through back-to-back DC connections. Uh, the grid in Canada, or the Canadian grid, is also connected to is also part of the Eastern Interconnect, right? So Eastern Connect includes the US and also Canadian provinces, but we're not going to talk about that here today. Okay. Did the slide change for you guys?
Yes, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah, we
perfect.
can see
All
it.
right. All right. So we are on slide 7. Yes, like I said, I'm here. I'm right here in Columbus, Ohio, uh, and we are gonna talk about the PGM grid. Um, let's see. So what do you see? What do you see on? Well, let's talk. I briefly explained what a regional transmission planning organization, or an RTO. Somewhere in some countries, not. It's in some parts of the country. It's called ISO, Independent System Operators. In the other parts of the country, they're called RTO, or Regional Transmission Organization. But it really boils down to the same thing. What do? They do grid management, which includes ensuring the reliability of the electric grid, balancing supply and demand. If you want 10 megawatts, the RTO will ensure that it has 10 megawatts plus more available to be able to serve your 10 megawatts on a reliable basis. Why do we need more? Because of system losses and because of outages, right? If you have exactly 10, likelihood is if you exactly produce 10, because of losses, you're not going to get the 10 you need. You will probably get a fraction of that. Also, if 10 megawatts are produced by 4 generators, if one generator is unavailable because of an outage or a failure, the RTO ensures that you have a a reserve margin available so that your 10 megawatt need can be reliably met at all the time. I talked about running an electricity market, right? A wholesale market where energy is bought and sold uh, really through commerce, through trade. Um, uh, if you are in the business of making power, making energy, or buying power, buying energy, you're allowed to make money, but the RTO itself doesn't get a cut out of it. Its job is to make sure that it oversees the sale and purchase between the entities. And then, the most important aspect that we're going to talk about here today is ensuring that there is adequate capacity available on the system to be able to serve the load that you want to be served, or the demand that you want to be served. I talked about Virginia Data Center Alley. It's basically right out. It starts right outside of the Dulles International Airport in Washington D.C. So huge infrastructure. You name it, all the data companies, data center companies in the world are present there. And we're talking about gigawatts of loads, tremendous amount of load. What do you see on the map? You see a couple of different things, right? You'll see some blue, uh, almost squiggly lines, right? You see some red lines. You see some green lines. What are those? Those are transmission lines. Uh, and I'm only showing extra high voltage, right? What does that mean? That means anything that is 345,000 volts and above is considered extra high voltage in the US. So I'm only showing three different voltages because those are the three extra high voltage transmission lines that exist in the PGM uh, part of the system that I said we're only going to talk about in this presentation. And these are just this is an AC. This is a largely AC system because it is within Eastern Interconnect. Uh, and then you'll see what is the highest AC voltage, alternate current voltage in the United States. It's 7,765 kilovolt or 765,000 volts is the highest voltage that exists in the US. For a very long period of time. Um, that was also the highest voltage in the world. And the company that I work for, American Electric Power, invented that technology, invented that voltage class. So something that we are very proud of. Uh, and then here you'll see, my company, American Electric Power, represented in this green shade, right? So you see transmission lines, and then you see these other blocks of purple and green and brown and blue and so on. Those are the different companies or electric utilities as that exist in the in this part of the grid. So you've got electric companies, you've got that are part of a regional transmission organizations. Then you have multiple regional transmission organizations or independent system operators that are part of the interconnects. And then you have the Eastern Interconnect, a Western Interconnect, and Texas. So that's how really how all these all the players work. Okay, moving on to the next slide. We will talk about at a very high level what is the process that is utilized um, uh, in PJM. Uh, by the way, PJM stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland. Those are the three states in the United States, in the US. But the PJM, Regional Transmission Organization, over time covers many other states. It covers Ohio, it covers Virginia, it covers West Virginia, Chicago area, Illinois, Michigan, and so on. But that's what PGM stands for because those were the three states in which the RTO operated at that time. So RTEP or Regional Transmission Expansion Plan is really the process that is utilized to plan the growth. That is really the foundational planning process that identifies transmission upgrades needed to maintain reliability and support new growth, like the rapid expansion of data centers that we were talking about. For developers, what does developer mean? Like if you're a power producer or an independent power producer, also known as IPP, understanding RTEP is critical because it really provides a process. It almost dictates how and when new transmission infrastructure can be built, and ultimately how and when a data center can be interconnected to the grid. I can't, if I'm a data center, I can't just show up and connect to the grid and expect to be served, right? I have to go through a process. Why is that necessary? That's necessary because we want to make sure that the grid stays reliable. In addition, we don't want duplicate infrastructure, right? We want to make sure that the right infrastructure is developed and that it is not duplicative. Moving on to the next slide, we'll talk about, obviously, now we've talked about data centers, how the electric grid is set up in the US, what are the regional entities that oversee the planning processes. But at the end of the day, we also need to understand how are the costs allocated. That's very important. Um, right? Uh, and that's where it gets very complicated. It all sounds good and sounds like a technical challenge and a problem to have, but it gets really political, really complicated as soon as you talk about who pays for what. So we're not going to get into that here today. The reason I brought this up was because there are a lot of aspects that need to be taken into consideration before massive power infrastructure can be built. But what is the scale of infrastructure, right? The scale could be new transmission lines that are over 100 or 200 kilometers long. We'll talk about that. So think about needing infrastructure which is uh, almost as um much visible as what we call it as the interstate system or the highway system um, uh, uh, in the world, right? So massive infrastructure. Some of it requires new construction, meaning building infrastructure through the corridors that have never seen power lines before. So think about the community aspect. Think about the people who've just never seen a big, uh, sometimes ugly looking pole carrying a lot of wires in their neighborhood. But we may need to do that because there's a need to serve a big customer like data center. But sometimes it's just you have an existing transmission line that is just not capable of handling the power that it's necessary, right? So sometimes it just means taking down the older lower capacity line transmission line and replace it with something that is uh, bigger and more robust. So it just depends what type of infrastructure is necessary. Okay. Um, Now, to bring this all into perspective, we talked about uh, 40 to 50% growth, just that what my company that I work for is experiencing. I want to draw attention to two data points. The 23 forecast, meaning that almost 2 years ago, uh, PJM, a regional transmission organization, made a forecast of this is what the system load is going to look like 5 years from then, 10 years from then, 20 years from then, and so forth. And then we're going to compare that with uh, the forecast that the regional transmission organization made in 2025. And you'll see that just those two forecasts are different by over 30%. Uh, so just in the span of these 2 years, the projected growth is almost, as high as 30%. So 2023, if you were looking to plan the system, uh, how the system would look like in 2035, uh, and in 2025, if you were looking at the same time frame, you know, think about this. The capacity on the grid that you would need has already exceeded by 30%. So it is a very fast moving target, right? Every year, where you think that you've got your forecasts right, you've got the right infrastructure planned, that could take up to a decade to build. Next year, that target has moved, it has grown. So then you have to adjust, recalibrate, and look at, okay, what do I still need the infrastructure that thought I needed last year? Do I need more? And the answer, at least for the past 5 years, is yes. You still need everything that you said you needed last year, but you need more. Okay. In the next 15 years, the system load that exists today, we expect that to increase by 55%, right? And look at some of these numbers. And you'll see that, how, just look at the growth trajectory, right? It's just taking off. You would see that over time, the system load was declining. Why was it declining? Because of all the efficiencies, demand response, smarter wires, different generation mix, that was really contributing towards a stabilizing load demand, or declining growth demand in some cases. But we've done all that. Uh, we've deployed all the technologies that will reduce the or bring efficiency, right? We've done a lot of that. So really, if more load continues to show up, more data centers continue to show up, we're seeing a spike in electric demand, and that's where some of these numbers are coming from. So, right, just at the bottom graph, if we use, so the blue line is really the forecast that was made um, uh, in 2023, and then the green line is the forecast that was made, the year prior. So you see the delta between the two forecasts, and it just blows your mind, what that delta was. And then on this graph here to the right, we're making the same comparison between 2024 forecast and 2025. So really, every single year, the delta between the prior year forecast just continues to get bigger and bigger, which presents unique but exciting opportunities. Okay, moving on to really the so we're continuing to zoom in into the different parts of the system, right? So let me just go back here for a second. So right, so the Virginia data center alley call out that I made a few slides ago, that is the area that we're going to bring some practical examples from. And again, you see some lines, you see some arrows, you see some crosses, and then there's a lot going on this map. But I'll try to simplify this. Right, the lines are transmission lines, right? 500 kV transmission lines. This part of the system, even though it was seeing the highest growth, uh, did not have any 765 kV. So, what do we do as planners, right? At a given point in time, there are always system failures. There's always outages. There is always infrastructure that is just going to be unavailable. Uh, so what do we do? What we do is ha- we run simulations where we factor in a whole bunch of what if scenarios. What if this facility is out of service? What if this generator is out of service? What if this load is at a higher amount? So we bake a lot of those um, what if scenarios into our planning studies. And then we identify, in this case, the regional transmission organization identified issues on the grid or limitations or on the grid that are going to arise. And that's what, that is what we're seeing. So for example, if you have the transmission line that exists between Bismarck and Meadowbrook unavailable, or you have the transmission line between Peach Bottom and Cornerstone unavailable, or if you have one of these southern sources unavailable, what you see is, power gets rerouted, right? What's going on? You have Huge data requirements in this part of the system, but the vast majority of the generation or the big generators are located outside of that system, right? So the generators rely on wires or transmission network to bring power from where it's produced to the areas where it's needed. But if you have one or more of those import paths unavailable, the paths that are available are now constraints. They are now no longer capable of bringing the generation to serve the load. So what you see is overloads uh, or pieces of equipment, transmission lines, transformers on the system that can no longer handle the power to be carried through them. And that is the situation, or that is the condition that we now have to fix. And why are we running into that? We're running into that because, the rate at which the load is or demand is growing in this part of the system is is really exceeding at which new generators can be built in that in the same part of the system, right? So generation is coming from outside the system. uh, Load exists inside the system. You just cannot build generator fast enough. In some cases, you may not even have enough real estate or land available to build generators right in the heart of the in the city, right? So think about Spain, right? If somebody asks you that, oh, why don't you just build a new power plant right next to the Spanish Steps in Rome, and you're or in Italy, right? You would do that. You'd be like, "What are you talking about? That's just not possible." You just don't build new generators right there where the big cities are, right? They're usually located outside the city, and you rely on transmission line to build power into the system. Same concept applies over here, right? So 7,500 megawatts of new load that needs to be interconnected, 11,000 megawatts of generation that is unavailable. Why? Because for different reasons, right? It could be older type of generation. It could be fossil generation. It could be coal generation. So the load is more and the generation is less. And just the amount of infrastructure, and we'll talk about what infrastructure was needed to solve this problem. This was almost 2 to 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, was close to 5 billion US dollars that was needed to fix this problem. So huge infrastructure. Moving on, right? What was the, so we talked about the cost, but what about the magnitude, right? In some cases, we needed 240 kilometers of new transmission line that had to be built. In addition, another 100, so if you do the math, 240, it's so this is 400, almost a little over 600 kilometers of new transmission lines that had to be built to solve this problem. I mean, this is massive. Imagine, imagine witnessing a 600-kilometer long highway that is being built. Imagine the level of and that too in different parts of the system, right? All coming together to be able to bring traffic to a big city. So imagine the planning that is necessary, right? Imagine the communities that are going to be seeing that disruption sometimes. Imagine the amount of steel that you would need. Imagine the amount of circuit breakers that you would need. Imagine the amount of um, uh, you know. Um, Solid state devices, some smart controlling devices that you would need to be able to serve all of that. So really massive. Uh, Sometimes, like I said, that infrastructure didn't even exist. So building something brand new through the area that has never seen that level of infrastructure is pretty interesting, pretty eye opening. So this was 3 years ago. All right, we're gonna go over a. Remember how we were talking about the forecasts? You make a forecast one year, the next year that forecast is always higher, so it's almost like a moving target, right? So last year, 2024, we were back in the same area. Uh, I'm still here, but in this area, we came back, and the infrastructure that was needed the year prior, almost 600 kilometers of transmission infrastructure was no longer adequate, right? We so what did we do? We did 5 billion dollars, or almost uh, 600 kilometers 2 years ago. Last year we had to do $4.5 billion more infrastructure that was needed, and we'll talk about the line mileages. So really think about being able needing to invest, 5 billion dollars, or 4 billion year after year after year. I mean, that level of investment is huge. It's unprecedented. Something that we would see over a period of 10 years or 20 years. Now we have to do that over a period of much condensed time frame. So just last year, we needed 5,000 kilovolt was not enough. So we had to go a step higher. We had to go all the way up to 7,000, 765 kilovolt transmission that had to be built, because the 500 kilovolt system was at capacity. So it's not only you need to build more infrastructure to solve this massive amount of data center. Oftentimes you're also seeing technological limitations. So if the 500 kV system was no longer able to bring the power into the data center alley, so we had to go the next voltage up. Why did we have to do that? Because 765 kilovolt is more efficient in transmitting power over long distance. It is able to carry more power in the same corridor. So one 765 kilovolt transmission line is able to carry as much power as two 500 kV transmission lines, or six 345 kV transmission lines. So imagine if you're trying to solve a problem and you need six 345 kilovolt transmission lines, which is going to take a lot of land. So nobody wants to do that, right? So the more efficient way is you increase the voltage size capability, so that you're able to more efficiently uh, carry that power. So 600 kilometers 3 years ago, uh, 300, 400, a little over 700 kilometers of new infrastructure that is needed last year. And guess what? This year we're back to the same area again. So again, I want to draw your attention back to the graph that showed, right? So every single year, the forecasted total is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the infrastructure that we need is getting higher and higher. Now, you may ask, what happens, right, if this load doesn't show up? And that is the problem that we have to solve, because we don't want to be in a situation where we build all this massive infrastructure and the data centers don't show up, right? We don't want the infrastructure to go to waste. Who's going to pay for it? So that is the hot topic that exists today. That how can we make sure that there are guardrails or safety nets in the processes, so that we're doing our job as planners in identifying the necessary infrastructure that is needed to solve these problems. But then at the same time, how can we protect the existing customers so that they're not asked to carry the bag for all the costs that we have incurred as we try to proactively build infrastructure for these big load companies that didn't show up. However, the good thing is we now have a reasonable track record or historical view established at least for the past 5 to 7 years, where we're now able to compare that, hey, we predicted this much, how much of that load actually showed up, right? So we're now using that intelligence to ensure that the infrastructure decisions that we're making are right sized, right? We're not sitting to the last minute in building this infrastructure, but also we're not taking such a radical approach that we build so much infrastructure that we just overshoot the target, right? So we're really trying to be we're really trying to take a balanced approach with it. Uh, Okay, we talk about the scale of the load that was showing up. We talked about the level of infrastructure that is showing up. Um, uh, but what are some of the other risks, right? That are taken into consideration before the right transmission solution is selected, right? Again, cost is the biggest issue, right? Everybody wants the best solution, the lowest cost solution, but honestly, you get what you pay for, right? And also, if I am in the business of building infrastructure, I might tell a regional entity that I'm gonna build this for 1 million US dollars, but 5 years from now, I come back to them and say that, you know what, I was wrong. It didn't cost $1 million. It costed 5 times more, so it costs $5 million. Nobody wants to be in that situation, right? Nobody wants to see all of a sudden a huge uptick in their power bill because somebody did a poor job in estimating how much it's going to cost. So being able to estimate, so if planning the infrastructure was hard enough, imagine developing capabilities so that you can estimate how much it's going to cost you from before 5 years from now to build the infrastructure that is needed, how hard that would be. Uh, I'll give you an example. All it takes is one war to break out, and you see a massive change in prices. The first year where when the Ukraine-Russia war broke out, just the gas power, sorry, natural gas prices went off the roof, right? So generators that are relying on natural gas to produce electricity could no longer use natural gas because it was uneconomical. The power plants, but obviously, right, there is you still have to rely on them because if you need power, you pay whatever is needed to make that, and as a result, you know if on average we were looking at $5 sorry $35 per megawatt hour that was going to cost to generate electricity in some periods of time, we saw as high as 1,000 US dollars per megawatt. So 35 megawatts and then 1,000 megawatts. So all it takes is one event, and then it causes a massive disruption in prices, supply chain logistics, and so on. Uh, a lot of the infrastructure that we use here in the sorry a lot of the equipment that we use, like circuit breakers, transformers, are not built here in the US. They are imported from Korea. They're imported from China, and other parts of the country world, right? So uh, if there are global disruptions, it has an impact on cost, but it also has an impact on schedule. So you have to take that into consideration. Um, right? We talk about land acquisition risk, right? Uh, Obviously, you want to be able to optimize it as much as you can. So you have to balance a lot of different risks. As we look into that. Um, I'll skip some of the emerging challenges, but I just wanted to point one thing. On average, it takes about 7 to 10 years if you are trying to build a new 765 kilovolt line that is about 160 kilometers long, because the planning, the execution, the routing is very complex, very complicated. So it's a very time intensive and money intensive process that we have to go through. Uh, we talked a lot about the power carrying capacity, but oftentimes what we're seeing is, as we continue to add load onto the system, we are approaching closer and closer to the knee of the curve. That if we add more demand on the grid without taking some additional proactive action, we're going to run into a voltage collapse situation. And what that introduces sometimes is that, not sometimes, what it will do is blackouts. We don't want to be that situation. So very different challenges that are being posed. We are running into interrupting capability issues. So circuit breakers that are necessary to interrupt faults on the system uh, are not big enough, are not robust enough to break some of the faults that we are seeing, on the system. Uh, 5 years from now, we were working with a distributed generation problem that was much smaller. With these big, massive data centers that are in gigawatts, sometimes they're also bringing generation with them. So, how do you plan for a system that has gigawatts or thousands of megawatts of new demand that sometimes come with new generation that could be dispatched onto the grid to be able to serve not the data center customers but some of the other customers? So how do you analyze things that are so massive and so dynamic in natures? Oftentimes these data centers are able to turn off a facility in Washington D.C. just to spin something off in Dallas, Texas. So how do you study and manage a system that can all of a sudden go down 5,000 megawatts and be picked up from a different part of the grid? So very different, challenges, that we have to um, take into consideration. Um, I'll 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 pause here to see what kind of questions you all may have. But in short, uh, the changes that data center interconnection is uh, is introducing to the grid is unprecedented. Um, I only have a 14 years career in this industry, but people who've been around for 30 years, they have never ever seen this level of change, this level of scope and size of demand that we have to now plan for our system. So exciting times, scary times, but really unprecedented and truly exciting, and fortunate that I'm excited and fortunate that I have to do I get to do this on a daily basis, and looking forward to challenge solving some of the challenges that are out there in the future to be solved. So I'll pause to see if there's any questions, anything that I need to clarify on, or anything that you need additional information on.
Okay, thanks a lot, Hassan, for your presentation. Any question from the audience? So, I have several questions, and during your presentation, I realized that we live in a global world. Because the presentation before that we have this morning, we analyzed the number about the investments required in Spain in the distribution companies, and the number was that we need to invest in the period 21 to 30 in the next, let's say, 10 years. We have to invest almost the 75% of the cost of the total distribution cost of the distribution system, which are pretty much the same, the numbers that you have said, that you have to invest in the next 10 years the amount of billion of dollars that you have been done in the 50 years before. This is the first thing that I would like to emphasize. The second one is that I'm really impressed about the data centers alley that is going to be installed there in Virginia. And I'm figuring out why this concentration of data centers in this specific place. It has to be something related with the, I don't know, that there in the PGM, you have a day-ahead market that usually have nodal prices. Is this because the nodal price there is better, or why all these data centers are located over there?
Yeah, great question. So a couple of different reasons, right? Uh, Initially, data centers wanted to be close to big cities, right? So that was one reason. The other reason was they wanted to be in an area where land was generally available. They wanted to be in an area where power prices are lower. They wanted to be in an area that had a robust telecom fiber optic network. Believe it or not, they need to be in an area that had reliable, abundant water sources available to help with some of the cooling that they need to be. So, and then then we get into politics and taxes and whatnot. So a lot of those factors contributed for data center alley to become a data center alley, but then it got crowded, congested very quickly, and now we're seeing data centers moving to alternate markets, because if you go after the same market over and over and over again, you know what happens.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, another question that it is important from your presentation, at least from my point of view, is that you have bring out another interesting topic. Is we have been talking this morning about the investments, the infrastructure. It is a challenge for all of us, but you comment something that to me is important. It's the community aspects. I think that nobody wants a extra high voltage line in his backyard. So what about the community oppositions about the construction, building of this massive infrastructure?
Yes, no, it's huge, right? Um, so so very high level, what is the thought process, right? If you build something overhead, meaning above ground, that's always the lowest cost option, right? So in areas where we still have some open land available, like farm fields, we do build overhead. But as you get closer and closer to big cities like Chicago or New York, or even the city that I live in, you just can't build infrastructure overhead. So you have to go underground. You have to go underwater. So by doing so, you may minimize the community aspect, but then you have sometimes quadruple the cost. Sometimes you have 10 times exceeded the cost. So it's really a balancing act, right? We go through a very extensive community engagement process and try to land on a solution that makes the most optimal sense, right? We could minimize the community impact, but we will incur high costs, and those costs will be passed on to the customers. So it's really a balancing act, but a problem that we have to really get very creative about on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you. And finally, another point that I think that is important is that the operation of the system in the near future. It is scary, as you have mentioned, because data centers can transfer workload from one place to another almost instantaneously. So we are going to think about how to operate the system with these gradients in a really safe manner. I think that this is
Yes.
also a real challenge. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, think about this, right? You're driving a car at 100 kilometers an hour, and you have to stop in like 5 seconds, right? I mean, think about that, right? Uh, Grid is no different, right? If you have data centers that are needing power, there are generators that are, spinning, wind farms that are spinning, gas plants that are burning gas, and so on and so forth. But all of a sudden, instantly, if 5,000 megawatt of demand is removed from the system, because now power prices are more economical in a different part of the system, I mean, those generators can't stop like this, right? So if so think about dynamic stability issues, that you run into. So it's very, it's fascinating, right? It has truly pushed our capabilities, human capabilities, also technological capabilities to the next level, where you really have to be not only be able to serve this load as quickly, as efficiently, as reliably as you can, but you also have to think about these other aspects that, okay, what if somebody turns off a data center and turns it on in a different part of the system? How do I just deal with the dynamics that are introduced? So very, very interesting challenges that we have to solve.
So thanks so much for being here today, Hassan. It has been a pleasure to learn a little bit more about the American perspective of the transmission operation of the grid, and I'm quite happy to host you virtually today here. So thanks a lot for your lecture. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.